Madison Beer's a pop star turned social media influencer turned pop star again. She released her first couple songs at the beginning of the 2010s decade. If you don't know her history, she was discovered by Justin Bieber after posting covers on YouTube. She was then signed to Island Records and made typical bubblegum teen pop. She was then dropped by Island Records at the age of 16. She had movies, TV shows, and the music she had worked on scrapped, saying, "It took me getting my dreams and then having them honestly all ripped away from me to put me where I am now. I don't think I would be as artistic. I literally had everything taken away from me." Beer explained that everyone left and gave up on her after the label dropped her, except for her mom, who managed her on her own for 2 years. She then came back with the independently released EP As She Pleases, which is a moody blend of pop and R&B, comparable to a lot of music that was being released during that time. It had limited standout highlights, but I think its true purpose was more so Madison re-establishing herself after all she had went through. She landed a deal with Epic Records in 2019 and has been teasing her debut album Life Support for quite some time, with a plethora of singles. The first song released from this era was Good and Goodbye. Good and Goodbye is a mediocre song. It's not bad, but it doesn't excel. I found the spelling part of the song to be a bit childish. Like I said before, the only person that can spell in the middle of a song and not make me cringe is Gwen Stefani, and the late great Aretha Franklin. The message of the song is universal. It's female power, and she talks about not holding on, and that the good and goodbye is so easy because the relationship is so toxic. The second song she released was Selfish, which I think up until that point eclipsed every song she had released. It's raw, it's vulnerable, it's beautiful, and her vocals sound so light, airy, and emotive. Contrary to her highly produced music videos, Selfish was stripped down and features a lot of close-ups and just her singing. The message also details relationship troubles. She's still loving someone who doesn't want to take care of themselves or love her properly, but she's gradually pulling away from them. The next single was Stained Glass, which I think is her best emotional song. The song sounds a bit FKA Twigs influenced, but I think she still manages to make it her own. The title Stained Glass quite literally applies to the subject matter of the song. Madison sat down in an interview and talked about the meaning of stained glass, saying, "I wrote Stained Glass at a time where I was really struggling mentally. The song was my message, not only to the public, but to those around me, to be more gentle on people and not judge them so hard, because you never know what someone's been going through. People sometimes assume that I'm okay when I'm not. People don't really see the parts of me that are ugly, sad, or depressed. They only see the sides they want to see, or the sides I feel comfortable to show because of the scrutiny that I've been in under my life." I liked having more insight about her struggles being in the public eye. And overall, it's just a beautiful song. It starts off as a piano ballad and completely transforms into the chorus when the drums kick in. If not her best, it's definitely one of her finest works and shows that she could lead to having more depth as an artist instead of just the normal pre-packaged pop songs. With Life Support, she returns and introduces herself with her most focused, serious, and cohesive body of work yet. However, this album doesn't go without its faults. Speaking of why she titled the album Life Support with Enemy, it's much more personal than anyone might expect. I was in a really dark place. I wanted to my team around me was super supportive. I genuinely believed that the time that I was creating my album and the time that I was genuinely and not wanting to live anymore were intertwined for a reason, because that was my life support. Explaining the title, she added, "That's why I called this album Life Support, because it kept me alive. I was going through a genuinely really tough time when we were creating this album. I had just been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and I was in and out of a lot of dark mental states." So she obviously set out to make a statement with this album. Life Support is a loosely based concept album, and it delivers on quite a few songs. It's a 17-track album with a running time of 46 minutes. It recalls the essence of a lot of different acts, from Tame Impala to Lana Del Rey to 21 Pilots, Billie Eilish, and oddly enough, some of the darker sonics even remind me of Rihanna's Anti. Majority of the tracks are done in a way that's not too derivative though. In quite a few of the tracks you can also hear the 60s pop influence, but it's delivered wrapped in a modern, edgier bow. The album kicks off with The Beginning, where Madison does these vocal riffs over a mostly minimalist backing, which turns into harmonizations with a guitar. And it's not a fully conceptualized song. but I think it serves a purpose of making a grand entrance. It showcases her vocal ability and light, airy tone. The beginning immediately transitions into Good and Goodbye, which is by far one of the worst songs on this record, and one of my least favorite songs she's ever released for this record. The spelling in this song and the lyricism is its true downfall. You put the over in lover, put the X in next, ain't no I in trouble, just you since we met. Cause you're toxic boy, I ain't even gotta try to find the G-O-O-D in goodbye. It just reads as something out of a middle school diary. The album picks back up with Default, which seems to be a song where Madison discusses her struggles with anxiety, and feeling like her current headspace will be the death of her. Although I do think the strings add a nice touch to the song, I feel like this song could use a little less violin. Follow the White Rabbit is an instant highlight for me. It's packed with an intense bass and an overall eerie feeling. It reminds me a little bit of Melanie Martinez. Effortlessly is a ballad where Madison alludes to taking pills to cope with her emotions, while also watching herself deteriorate and fade. A beautiful vocal performance is delivered on this song, but nonetheless as one of my favorite tracks, and the vocoder ending as a special touch that elevates the emotion conveyed throughout the song. Stay Numb and Carry On sonically and even lyrically reminds me of a 21 Pilots track that could have been on Blurry Face. It's a song where Madison talks about essentially just pushing forward and being hurt so much that she becomes emotionless. With Blue, Madison channels her inner Lana Del Rey. The verses themselves can sound a little too derivative of Lana Del Rey. Lana's vocal style and production style is written all over this track. And even the lyrics are something you could picture Lana singing. I was always blue behind the red blood stain on my lips. You were always green with envy, saw right through the tenderness. We were like a California sunset, fated to die any minute. Getting rid of you might be the best thing I ever did. Even though it is a little derivative of Lana, I can't say that it stops me from enjoying it. I do enjoy the production and her vocal performance on this song. It's a song in the album where Madison seems to be becoming more self-aware and realizing she needs to run when her makeup does, meaning crying. Homesick, from my interpretation, is a song about feeling isolated and almost becoming comfortable in your loneliness. Madison talks about not feeling like she belongs. It's a song that reminds me of Miley Cyrus. It's a pretty simple guitar ballad. In the end, a Ricky and Morty sample comes in, which transitions into Selfish. Selfish is one of her best songs and a fine piece of a ballad. My only issue with this song is the Gemini line. It drives me crazy. The song sounds like a mature, beautiful ballad with a stunning vocal performance, and that Gemini line just takes it down one step. She says, I bet you thought you gave me real love, but we spent it all in nightclubs, all you ever do is lie, why you always such a Gemini? That line just makes me cringe so hard. Emotional Bruises recalls 50s and 60s doo-wop, but with a much more pop appeal. Thematically, Madison talks about constantly taking her ex back and finally letting them go. Everything Happens for a Reason is the last fully conceptualized song, and it's a pop-influenced country song. The message is pretty simple. She comes to the realization she still loves her ex, and doesn't understand why they would want to hurt her so bad. On the official album closer, Channel Surfing / The End, it reads like the closing credits of a movie. It shows little snippets of her journey through achieving the album, with Madison ending it with a thank you so much. I think this record was a solid debut for Madison, and will ultimately and hopefully lead to people seeing her as a more serious artist. It toyed with some interesting sonic ideas. Some of the lyrical content struggles with being too banal. I'll also say at some points the album felt overproduced. It could have used less vocal processing and layering, but on some songs it nailed the vocal effects. Madison has a beautiful voice and nice range, and she should let it shine and take the forefront of the songs more often instead of hiding it. Some of the songs were too short and some were too derivative of its influences, but I do think Madison is succeeding in carving a path for herself and making an artistic identity that is recognizable. She's straying away from her bubblegum pop roots and is being more vulnerable and personal. It's a nice landing for a debut record, which is coupled with dark sonics and themes of heartbreak, loneliness, and toxicity and love. Even if the production on this album isn't always nailed, it sounds expensive and detailed, and that's a quality I can appreciate. Madison put her best foot forward and delivered a lush collection compiled mostly of ballads, vocal effects, and darker sounding pop. I like this album. This is a promising debut effort, and seeing the highlights she achieved on this album, I will only expect even stronger material with her next few releases.